All right, made it to the airport here in Atlanta. And hang on, let me set this up. Got about 30 minutes till the flight boards, so I figured I would explain a little bit about how I prepare for these podcasts. I had somebody at dinner the other day ask me how I prepare for podcasts, and this answer has changed and evolved over time. But I remember there's a specific podcast where it kind of changed for me. You know, if for anyone who's listened to previous episodes of mine, you'll know that I conducted a lot more like just a conversation. And my goal ultimately is to just be as present and in the moment as possible, as opposed to like a formal interview with questions prepared. But that wasn't always the case because nobody tells you how to make a podcast, and a lot of them are structured in kind of interview format. And so when I started out, it was kind of that. I would do a bunch of research on the guests who were coming on. And while I think this made for great episodes, my internal felt experience was like super stressful, because as they were responding, I'm kind of like half paying attention to what they're saying and thinking like, okay, how do I get them to the next question? And so while I think I managed it well, and you probably can't really tell the difference in the listening experience, my internal experience was a lot more anxious, and I felt like there was a disconnect between me really being in the moment and being present. I remember specifically the first bigger guest I had was Noah Ryan the first time, and we've become decent friends online. But that first episode was like, I'd done all this research, all these questions prepared, and then when I finished that episode, I had left like half the questions I had prepared unanswered, but it still ended up being a really great episode, and I realized that was kind of more of my edge. Like that was what I should lean into. I'm never gonna outcompete the best researcher in the game, but nobody can have the same questions, thoughts, perceptions that I can in the moment, right? Because it's like a unique amalgamation of like my perspective on their work, what they're saying to me in the moment, and then if I just follow my curiosity naturally, it creates kind of a one-on-one conversation, which ultimately I think carries through into the podcast in its finality. So as far as preparing for this podcast with JB, I did spend a good amount of time going through like all his YouTube videos and all the other podcasts he's appeared on, just so that I have armed my subconscious with the context of like his story, what's going on. But people would probably laugh at like the notes sheet that I have prepared. You'll probably see in a lot of podcasts I'll have my laptop there. It's literally so I have like the intro that I write out, the outro, and then like bullet points, but it's very, very little. And typically as guests get kind of bigger and have had more appearances, I'm going to be trending away from just like the story part of people's lives, because they've probably told that before, and trying to find like a unique angle or something that I feel like hasn't been discussed with them about them or their experience of their life. So you'll see kind of today where I want to go with it. I mean, me and JB connected on a call to set this podcast up, talking a lot about vulnerability and authenticity. That's the thing that like jumped out to me about his content and made me want to reach out, because he shares such vulnerable subjects in a very authentic way, and he kind of like lays it all to bear and owns it a lot. And I think that has created a sort of magnetism in his content that obviously has been reflected in his following. He's blown up. He's almost at 500,000 on Instagram. And what's funny is like I reached out to him not that many weeks ago initially, and he was back at like 200 something or 300 something. So he's growing like crazy, and I don't think that that's by accident. There's just so much content out there that I think the only way you can separate from noise and signal ultimately is just being really authentic and vulnerable with your story and making content that only you can. We're past the stage of like fancy edits, hooks, and all that stuff, and really the message carries through the most. So a lot of today will be around vulnerability, authenticity, and specifically words, which you'll kind of see how I tie that all together in the podcast. But felt like that context was really good. Woke up early this morning at like 6 a.m., flight at 10 a.m. local here. I'll get there at like 11:25. I didn't get to eat anything this morning. I've just had a coffee, so hopefully I'll be able to eat something on the ground before the podcast, so I'm kind of like satiated and focused and everything. And then it'll be about a 30-minute drive from the airport in Dallas to the studio where we're recording. I'll show you guys a little bit of that behind the scenes, and then you'll obviously see the final product. But JB was gracious enough to prep everything. Obviously he has a very defined aesthetic if you've seen his Instagram. So he said he wanted to kind of handle everything, studio and audio and all that stuff, which was something that, because I reached out, I was happy to handle, but he kind of took that. So that's, again, like something that's very gracious of him. I'm very, very grateful. I don't know if JB will ever watch this behind the scenes vlog back, but appreciate you, brother. Still kind of surprised and confused as to why you said yes to me. I don't believe in coincidence, so I know that, like, for me and my story, it happened for a reason, and I know likewise there's probably an element to your side of the story as well, which is why you said yes, or as to why you said yes. Also, it's going to be one of the first times, if not the first time, I've ever done a out and back flight in the same day. So I'll fly back tonight at like 8:30 or something. So pretty cool to be traveling for the work and for the podcast. This is the first time I've flown specifically just for an episode. And I have in my notebook, I've talked about this on a previous vlog, but I wrote out all my goals for 2024, very focused on input stuff that I can control as opposed to like followers, money, which are outputs. But you can go back to that episode to talk about more of the theory there. But one of those is travel for a podcast, and we're just 1 month in basically to the new year, and it's already coming to fruition for me. So write your goals down, because there's literal magic in that, and the element of calling your shots is more than just stroking the ego. There's definitely something magical to it. But I gotta get ready for the flight here in a few minutes, so I'll catch some B-roll of the flight, but otherwise I will see you guys in Dallas.
Literally never understood the people that race to get on the plane, because it can't take off until the last people are on it. Comment below if you're a early on person or if you're a wait to the end person. Only one of those groups of people is right, but I don't want to influence your decision. All right, so landed in Dallas in the Uber to the studio where JB's waiting for me, allegedly. Getting pretty excited to sit down and talk with him, but I will catch back with you guys as we arrive at the studio. I think I'm in the right place. JB says second floor.
What up, bro?
There he is.
Good to see you, man.
Good to see you.
Good?
I'm doing well, man.
Man, welcome to the homestead.
Wow, yeah, no kidding. Intense. Is this gonna be us right here?
This is gonna be us.
A little BTS action.
Yo.
Say hi to the people.
What's up?
Cool. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Vitruvian Podcast, a podcast centered around self-mastery. I'm your host, Zach Shankin. Today, I'm joined by JB Copeland. JB is a creative entrepreneur, storyteller, and former collegiate athlete, but you know JB for his social media takeover, sharing his story of battling with and defeating addiction and healing the wounds necessary to do so. JB leads from the front with vulnerability and authenticity, and his strength on camera does not come from acting classes. I'm beyond excited for grateful for our conversation today. JB, welcome to the show, brother.
Man, thank you, and thank you for the intro.
Of course, bro. I have to give this shine. I think I was telling somebody the other day, they were asking kind of how I prepare for podcasts, and I even went into it a little bit in the behind the scenes vlog of prepping for this, but they were asking about preparation and how I think about it. I never conduct these like an interview. It's just a conversation. I think that connects most with people. They can feel that human element. It's like what comes through in your content. And I kind of have distilled down like my job at the very beginning is to just get the guest as comfortable as possible, and it never hurts to make somebody smile. So I always try to be like overly gratuitous with the compliments, and obviously coming from a place of genuine authenticity on my end. Like I mean every word that I say, otherwise I wouldn't say it.
Yeah, man.
And
I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, it was incredible. I think, we were just going back and forth on why you were even open to having this podcast, facilitating it with your production and everything, letting me come here to Dallas, for which I'm super grateful. And I think it speaks to your character,
just kind of be opening that door. Would you care to like let people in a little bit on why you said yes?
Yeah, I haven't said yes to a ton of podcasts, and the reason is because like, you know, a lot of people want to hear the same story over and over again, and I'm so down with it, and I know that you're going to ask me questions about my story, and which is so great, and I'm excited to share it. But I love what you're trying to do, and so that's number one. I love what you're doing. Number two is you sent me a DM. It wasn't even a DM; it was a video DM, and I get DMs all day of, you know, hey, let me build you a community, and we'll split it 50-50, you know, whatever. But you sent me a video, and that just showed, I don't know, that's not that it was clickbait, but I was like, oh, I'm interested. Because someone just sent a video, and there's no text on here. It's just, I have to listen to this video. You know, it sparked my curiosity.
So, what's up? We're in the editing bay right now, but I wanted to kind of double click on this. I'll show you the video that I sent JB right now. JB, what's up, brother? First off, I want to thank you so much for the work that you do and sharing so much vulnerability and authenticity in your story. And that's actually something I wanted to reach out to you about. I personally have a podcast about self-mastery, and I'd love to have you on if that's something that you're not opposed to, just to discuss the power of vulnerability, authenticity, healing as a man in modern culture, and just be able to provide another long form piece of content for the world to be seen and heard through your story, my story, and the conversation we facilitate. So let me know if that's something you'd be open to, and I'd love to discuss if it makes sense on both ends. But otherwise, enjoy the Christmas holiday, and I'll see you on the timeline, brother. Peace. And I think the reason that that's important or worth sharing additionally is because I go into this in the full episode so you can listen more, but it's so important to put yourself out there, to make the shot first. Like I say in the podcast, people literally can't say yes to whatever your ask is, whether it's a job, whether it's a date, whether it's a trip, whether it's somebody helping you out, mentor, whatever. They can't say yes unless you make the ask. They literally won't even know the ask exists. And the worst case scenario from asking is they say no or they never respond, meaning you're exactly where you are. So it's literally, there's no net negative. If you think of yourself as a point, you're not going to drop below. You're just going to either stay the same or potentially have your life drastically change. So send the DM, send the email, ask the girl on the date, do whatever it takes to open the door or potentially open the door, because you have no idea what's behind that ask. And you'll be surprised. A lot of people, especially if they're, you know, further along than you or like mentor type figures, they want to help out. They're willing to overindulge. Like in the case of JB, he not only said yes to the podcast, but he was willing to organize the studio space, take time out of his schedule for myself to have this kind of thing happen. So that's just my encouragement for you guys. And also be willing to put your face behind it too. Like, I think it can't be underwritten, the value of putting a face to a name. And if you're going to meet somebody in person eventually, don't be afraid to just film the little video. It's way cooler, faster, more effective than a cold email ever will be. And you won't be like thinking about the wording. You're just speaking from the heart, and that carries through. So back to the podcast and the vlog.
And then your willingness to fly here and to make it happen. I was like, you know, we were kind of talking about your clients, and it's like, you know, they buy in, and like, it means something to them. And for you to do that showed me that like this means something to you. And for me, that makes it want to mean something to me too. And so that's why.
Okay, so apologies for the abrupt cut there. First off, really excellent episode. I recommend everybody go check it out. JB's an awesome guy, one for hosting me, but as you can tell by the conversation, just super, super special dude. He's got a really, really high ceiling, and he cares a lot about you guys, like whoever's paying attention and listening. Like, he hasn't sold out. He's been very intentional about using his platform, and that will continue to be the case. So that's really cool. But he had to run to a meeting right afterwards. I grabbed the files and then just had to take off. So just hung out in the area, did a little bit of work, got some food, and now I'm back in the airport. As far as how the podcast went, I didn't end up getting any food beforehand, so I was fasted the whole way through. So I was definitely like mentally really trying to like stay in it. I hope that you guys feel like it was a good episode. I feel like I did a pretty good job staying in there in the zone, in the pocket, focused in the thing, but I could definitely feel myself waning towards the end. But yeah, that's a little window behind the scenes. Obviously, I'll be editing this shortly, and then pod will be out by the time that this is out. So go check out the full episode. Really, really incredible. Other than that, I'll be back to Atlanta late tonight. Woke up at 6 a.m. this morning, won't get back till close to midnight. So long day in the office, but cool to have traveled for the podcast, and really excited to do it again in a couple more weeks. Head to LA to talk to Arlen and potentially some others. So that's going to be all for this episode. Just a quick day trip to Dallas, and I'll catch you on the next one.